What's up, everybody? A Sparrow with a Gun here from Sleepless Nights with another episode on FTB Revelation. When we left off in the last episode, we made a mob farm, which, by the way, is really cool. It's working actually so well that I might have to look into another system for storing all of the crap we're getting from it. Oh, and by the way, I probably will be addressing a little bit, not a ton, but a little bit of scheduling stuff going on, for those of you that are interested. Where did I get gold from? I've been clearing out a new area, in the laboratory, so it must have been from there, I guess. I don't remember finding gold. I found iron, and it was dark. That's the one thing I don't like about the shaders. The shaders look really, really cool. I mean, look at this. It looks cool. But in caves and stuff, I wish the unnatural light was a bit brighter. And I don't really know if there's a way to reconcile that, to be honest. Oh, dagnabbit. I've been trying to mix the cultivated and the common, and I can't seem to get them to mix right. Let's try it again. I think there's a couple other things I wanted to go over as well. See, it's like, okay, this is a good example. Out here, it's super bright, and it looks really cool. When we go in here, the light level in here, at its darkest point, is like 10 or something, which is not a dark light level. For some reason this is 0. Oh, it's because it's slabs. But yeah, so it's just weird that it seems a little bit dim, I guess is a good example. It's like it's dimmer than I would like it to be. But you know, what are you gonna do? I don't know enough about shader stuff to know how to edit them. And I apologize if I sound really nasally. Shortly before I started recording this episode... Oh, I actually have more than that. Shortly before I started recording this episode, I don't know why, but I suddenly had like a sneezing fit, so my sinuses are all flared up and out of whack. What do I need? I need my chisel. Chisel. I'm making more of these tile blocks. Oh, I was hoping I would have enough. Poo. What is a chisel? It's just a stick and iron, isn't it? I think? Maybe? Do I have a stick? I have to have a stick somewhere. No? Seriously? I could have swore I had a stick laying around here somewhere. Oh well, what are you gonna do? I have a stick now. But yeah, so I was expanding the lab because the lab is kind of turning into that front part where we made our spawner is kind of sort of turning into a power area. Not really much of the beehive or genetics lab that I initially wanted. So yeah, there's that. And you might see this over here. I was playing around with, I thought it would be cool to have like a clear glass door for certain areas. And so I was looking to see if we had any glass doors in this mod pack. Now, I don't know that I couldn't do a secret door with glass, like a secret wooden one or something like that. That might be an option. I'm not really sure. But the one that I tried was the iron glass door. I probably should have gone with wood, but as it stands, I'm okay with it because with the shaders pack, it's weird because it doesn't seem to upset glass itself. Glass itself is still transparent, but something about this glass door, it doesn't really let it be see-through, which is what I wanted, so that won't really work. But I also found, we obviously were using the lab doors. I don't know if it's the Sphax pack or not. It very well could be, but as you can see here, they're kind of wooden, and I never really cared for that, but I noticed this guy over here, which is factory doors. And they're actually about the same. They're basically the same, they just use more gold and less iron. So I made some of those. I do think they're a lot better. I think it looks a lot better than the other stuff, and I'm going to show you that. I'm also going to bring some stuff with me because I may work on some of this on or off camera. I haven't decided yet. I know I'm going to need power conduits, and I made a farmer because I'm really trying to make use of other other power systems. I always use solar power when I do these mod packs, basically because it's free. See these? Much better. I like them. It has that reactor blast door kind of look to it. I like it a lot better. So the farmer is another idea that I had for possibly not only automating farms, but also to possibly do a power loop. I haven't quite decided yet. So this is the setup now. You might notice these two tanks over here. I've done some work. I don't have my wrench on me. Okay, you might notice these say they're block covers. There's a reason for that. I'm just going to grab one. So this is a power cable running from here. Running from this factory block. Not factory. Is it? No. Energy cell. This is laboratory blocks. Which is still not factory blocks. I don't know where I got that from. Anyways. So this is Essence of Knowledge, which can actually be used in the Enchanter? Is it called? That's Disenchanter. Enchanter, no. It's from Industrial Foregoing. If I can spell. Industrial, where did it go? There's so many blocks and they all kind of look the same. Resourceful Furnace. I'll have to look into that. I don't know what that does. There's one in here, Enchantment Factory? Where did that go? Maybe this is it. Nope, maybe? Doesn't really give me anything. Oh, let's just do it this way. Essence. Uses. Arcane and Sorcellator. I have no idea if that's right or not. But you can use the Essence of Knowledge with books and an item to get certain kinds of enchantments, which is pretty cool. I don't know where else you could use this. Obviously it says Bottler and Fluid Transposer, but I think that's all it's really used for. Because I couldn't find a way to use Essence, which is what we're getting from the grinder. Now you could make it into bottles of enchanting and throw them down, or you could pump it into something that uses an XP drain, something like that. But I didn't want to have to put it on me and then have to go enchant stuff. I wanted a way to automate it. So what I basically done here, let me see if I can find my little passageway that I leave. Alright, this isn't on. There's a couple other things I wanted to go over. This is a terrible idea. Explosive generator. Would not recommend it. It's awful. It generates power, but where this does that whole, like, doom thing, this thing just keeps exploding. Now, it doesn't damage blocks, but if you're standing within, like, a 3x3, or I think it's like a 5x5 or something, it'll blow up and you'll take damage, and it's really loud. So it's a bad idea. It was an experiment gone awry, which is exactly what this lab is for, is to experiment. As you can see, this thing is doing work. It's doing so much work. We've gotten so much crap from all this. I mean, I could essentially melt all this down into liquid gold and all that kind of stuff in the smeltery. So there's a lot of uses. We got tons of gunpowder, almost a whole stack of ender pearls, spider eyes, zombie flesh, bones, string, bows, arrows, whatever the heck this stuff is. I can't find a use for this. If you guys know of a use for this Embers mod stuff, let me know, because I have a buttload of it. I mean, you can make the archaic bricks, and this is kind of cool. I don't know how to make this. This is kind of one of those building loops that you can just, like, you make a shard or out of a crystal, or you make a crystal out of shards, and it's like, that doesn't help me. This makes a codex. This makes this thing. So I don't know what any of this crap is. So I'll have to look into that, I guess, at some point. We've even got some iron and a little bit of redstone and glowstone, I'm assuming from witches. There's some cobwebs. There's a stick. I knew I had sticks laying around. There's also this solidified experience, which you can put into a magma crucible and make more essence of knowledge. So it's like cubed XP, basically, which is kind of cool. Now, there is the aspect of, with this XP stuff, I believe if I were to attach a spigot, is it? XP, or is it still called a drain? I don't remember what it's called now. Let's see here. Oh, I know. Let's do a tank, because it's from... Here we go. XP tap. That's what it is. So if you attach the side of a singularity tank... Attached to the side of singularity tank will turn XP fluid back into orbs. And this is the XP drain. So this is the hard part, is kind of transforming all of this stuff to make it all work. I don't know if I were to put this essence of knowledge in a singularity tank with a tap, would it actually come out as actual XP that you can stand under? I believe it would, but I don't know, because if my memory serves, I think you can actually do that with essence as well, without turning it into anything. And at the risk of breaking stuff... Well, I can break this one, I think. Yeah. So it'll be a little difficult to see, but I've got a drain, and this is coming out of the grinder. The drain is coming up to... a fluid duct, which is coming into a drain for the smeltery tank. Now, the reason I did these was it's the only multi-block tank that I could find in this mod pack. There's these guys, but these don't actually merge. If you put a bunch of them together, they all kind of stay one cube. And these are all for Steve's carts, but I couldn't find the Railcraft or Zycraft like tanks that used to be in a lot of the other mod packs. There was a couple of these that made it sound like they were multi-tanks, but I couldn't tell, and when I looked it up, Tinker's Construct now has a tank, so we just went with that instead. Especially since seared stone is basically just cobble in a smeltery, so it was really cheap to make, other than the lava. But anyways, we've got a drain that's connected here, so it's filling up with essence. There is a servo right here that's set for a high at the moment, because I don't want it just filtering out all the time, which is what this lever's for. Now I could put a jack-o'-lantern right here, and then make this a camouflaged lever, just like the other one, which would work the same way, but it would be one block, so I might do that at some point. And then that fluid duct goes under, and I might be able to get to it from down here, since this isn't running. It is running! Dagnabbit. Alright, anyways, you can see the cross pipes that are going that way. Are you good now? Don't you kill me. Alright, that's important to note. This says this has a retriever on it now instead of a servo. And you can select the things. I'm going to get away from it now. I'll explain that in a second, but basically these fluid duct pipes run all the way along here, and they actually run into this fluid transposer, because I had this tome of knowledge laying around. I found out this is an easy way to mix them. If you just pump a fluid... or the essence into a fluid transposer, you'll just get essence. And then if I were to pipe it in here, it would just be more essence, which would serve no purpose. But if I have it here, see right now it says 0. So what's going to happen were I to turn this on for a second? We're going to get a little bit of that going out. All right. Now if we turn that off, that should be enough to get the point across. And now this is filling up, but when it goes in here, it's going to the Tome of Knowledge at 275. Now, if I were to switch this it comes out as essence of knowledge. So it's a really quick and easy way to actually kind of switch between the two. And if my memory serves, this can store a ton of XP. I mean, yeah, I would say it's comparable, but I don't know because I don't know how long that's been building up. But, so yeah, that's kind of my new system at the moment. The retriever, now let me explain that. The servos will pull out anything when it's set to, ignored or whatever, and it's always on. It'll pull any of this to it. But there's one problem with that, the way this is set up. So I had a servo on the mob grinder, whatever, and it was pulling items through there, and there was a little split off, and it would dump either... With the servo on there whitelisted, it would pull bones or rotten flesh. But the problem is, if it was full, or if it had bones and it didn't have rotten flesh, and one or the other was trying to go through the pipe, it would show up in the storage crate. Once it got to the crate, it was not being pulled back through the pipeline because I did not have a servo coming out of this pulling the items out, so there was no force pushing it down the pipe. The retriever is a cool little gizmo I found out about, and just for thoroughness, this is a retriever. So it's an Eye of Ender, iron nuggets, iron bars, and glass. And what it actually does is it will pull whatever items you have whitelisted or blacklisted or everything but what's blacklisted, etc. It all works the same way, but it will pull anything that it can to the inventory that needs it from any other inventory on the network. So essentially, if I have the retriever down there, and even if for some reason it shouldn't, but even if things were stuck in the grinder and not getting to the storage, because say this was full, then the retriever would still pull from that to get its bones or flesh. When it gets over here, however, it's not relying on this servo anymore. It will just pull them back out and bring it to it if it needs it. So basically what this would do is if we used all of the bones, for example, then it would start pulling rotten flesh, but it would pull it out of this container rather than me having to funnel it back through somewhere. So it's a fairly nifty way of doing things. You might be wondering what this guy is. It actually is not coming up with a name, which is weird, but it is I don't remember what it's called actually. Well, let's see. So it's from Actually Editions. So to make this farmer, we needed the Inori crystals, which is used from an atomic reconstructor. And essentially it uses RF, and it says it's crystal flux, but it's basically RF. And you smack it with a redstone torch to change the mode. So with it set to pulse, if I step on it, you get a little laser. I'm not seeing anything. That might be a shaders pack thing. But anyways, and you can throw things on the pressure plate. It'll trigger it, it'll pulse it, and it'll change it into an Actually Editions block. Which is how we made the farmer, because the Inori crystals it's essentially an iron block. You can take an iron block and you use the resonator thing and it'll change it to Inori crystals. So, made the farmer. I also made a fisher, which is essentially a modded version of AFK fishing farm. It's off at the moment. But if I were to, let's just say, grab the bottom row here and throw all this crap in here. There's a ton of Pam's Craft stuff, and we were to turn it on. You see we get something there. It uses power. It uses 5,000 per use or job or whatever. But it would basically be the equivalent of an AFK fishing farm. And the reason I did this is because fishing is the only way that I know of outside of some specific mod to get mending. Or I think it's mending. I think that's the only one. And so I wanted to get some mending books for like my shield and armor and stuff. Like Tinker's Construct can do the mending moss, but other stuff cannot. So that's where we're at this point. Excuse me. And then this is the new area that I'm currently building. It's a little smaller, and I think this is going to be the bee DNA machine area, and this is going to be more of... What the heck happened there? Huh? What happened there? That's some kind of shader lighting glitch. Weird. So anyways, that's where we're at. That took a long time to explain, but that's the gist of it. I wanted to explain kind of the retriever setup and some of this other stuff, but I don't think I'm going to get to the farmer area today. That was a project that I lost track of, but I'm going to work on this newer area and see what I can come up with. Okay, so I've been working a little bit on some stuff. I didn't get as far along as I would have liked to, but I think we're in a good way. Part of it is because I wanted to go over some things, so I figured now would be a good time. First of all, I found a very convenient little fact, and that's that my power line coming off of this power cell was actually a little off-center, so I didn't have to go through the pumpkins. So I can basically cover these up and run my power conduit into this next room, which would be cool. And what I'm thinking is having most of the machines over here, which is from Binnie's Genetics. Now there is another interesting thing here. There's also this mod, which is Gendistry. And I remember dabbling in this somewhat, but I don't remember too much about it, to be honest. Like, of how it works or which is easier. So definitely let me know which one you guys think is better, or easier, or whatever. The Binnie's one seems a bit more robust, in that there's a lot of stuff going into this. So, for example, let's just grab some of this stuff. So, in order to make the growth medium, you just need sugar and bone meal and some water, and that would make a liquid growth medium, but you need the incubator block. So then we take the growth medium, we funnel it back into the incubator with wheat, so we'll need a sustainable wheat farm, which we already have, and that makes bacteria. Now you can use the growth medium, or is it growth medium? I think it's growth medium and a larva to create said bee that you want to create from the sounds of things. If I'm reading all this correctly, you'll lose the larva, but you get whatever bee you made the larva out of. But for making the larva, you need growth medium, wheat, and feel free to comment and let me know if I'm messing any of this up at any point in time. And if you take the bacteria and you make sugar or bone meal, you'll either end up with polymerizing bacteria or an enzyme. Now we'll start with this one first. So if we use an enzyme, it also is used to make an isolator. But within gene isolation or a gene pool, so the gene pool, you're basically making raw DNA out of ethanol, an enzyme, and some kind of extra bee. Not the extra bee mod, but like anything you have laying around. The gene isolation is where you would take a bee that you want an aspect of them, take the enzyme, and you have a blank sequence, and you get that or one of the random sequences out of this bee, if I understand it correctly. So that means we need ethanol. So if we check ethanol, it can be manufactured. Oh, this is interesting. Still biomass. So either a still or a fractionating still, which I'll probably end up using. This is 10 to 3, so that's what's I think 10 to 3. And this is 100 to 30, so it's about the same. So to make biomass, we will need a fermenter, and we can use some kind of juice or honey or seed oil. Is it seed oil or is it just juice? I think it's juice and honey, so we're going to need honey. I'm thinking compost will be the easiest. It's wheat and dirt. What is this? Barley, okay. And dirt can be made through a sludge refiner. And if my memory serves, you can get that from a tree chopper or whatever it's called. There's one of the industrial foregoing blocks that as it mines trees or farms or something like that, it'll produce sludge. So we'd take the byproduct of that, and make dirt out of it, which will make our compost, which will then add with honey and stuff and saplings to make biomass, which makes ethanol, which then makes the apiaries. You get the idea. So from there we can use this guy with Fluorescent Dye, which is basically just stuff. It's glowstone and dye. And it adds that, if I'm getting all this right, it adds that trait to the gene database and then gives you a blank sequence back, from what I'm understanding, right? That part's important. So then, if we go backwards a little bit and we go back to the polymerizing bacteria, right? So you need that in raw DNA, which we saw how to make before, and you need one of these serums, which you get a serum by taking a vial, using the database and selecting the kind that you want. And then you use the raw DNA and a polymerizing DNA to get the actual, now we actually have the trait for that species or that trait or whatever. And then we use that in an incubator with a bacteria vector, which apparently, I'm a little confused on the larva setup here because it looks like it's the same. So I think you would take this and then it would make the larva, or you need a larva. I'm not really sure how you get them. See, it's like this, you need a larva, but I can't seem to find a way to get it, other than, if I might be reading this part correctly, yeah, see, all of this just comes from incubation. So I'm thinking you take the species or whatever, and with the bacteria vector, I think it creates one? I might be reading that wrong, though, so let me know in the comments. It does seem like you don't need the extra bacteria vector, which is made through bacteria and blaze powder, from the looks of things, but it requires 600,000 RF, or 10 minutes, or 12 million RF, and 1 minute. So it's like a lot of power, and faster, or a lot less power, and a little bit longer. So I definitely think I want to add this into the loop. I'll probably end up watching some tutorials on Binnies just to make sure I've got all that correctly. It seems like that makes sense just the way that I worked it out from looking through all the different creation cycles. So there's a lot of fluids and a lot of power going on. So what I'm thinking here is we're going to run a power line along here, and it's going to go into all of our machines over here. And then I may, either I'm going to run power directly under them and then pipe out fluids from the back, or pipe fluids this way, but then that would mean that the power is going to have to come up. So I'm probably going to go with the power going directly underneath them and then cutting out these blocks and running the fluids elsewhere, either to another area of the lab with tanks, or maybe running it back under here and putting the tanks over here. I'm not really sure. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. But then there's this guy. You might be wondering, some of you probably figured it out, but you might be wondering, how in the world did this happen, right? This is from one of what could be my new favorite mod if I really had time to put into stuff, and that's Chisel and Bits. Chisels and Bits, which is great. So I made a bit bag, which, as you can see, I have a lot of these. This only came from a couple of blocks, but you get a lot of bits. And then you can take these bits and it automatically restocks. There's tutorials online. I won't go into details with it, but it is pretty cool. So you can see this little, I might want to turn the shaders off when working with this because it seems a little harder to see this and it doesn't always come up all the time. But for example, say we wanted this to go out another block, right? So right about here, I think would be another block. Yeah, you see the flip? So if we do this, let me play some more, I think one more will be too much, and then we can set to a plane and remove that top one. Or, another way to do this would actually just be to add a plane to the top here, like this, because I guess I was one low. Let's just do that. And actually we can do it that way too. So we can do that, No, actually I don't want to do that right now. So we'll take that away. I think I had it set to medium cube. And we can remove these if I can get a hold of it right. Ah! I always mess this up. That's what I was meaning about sometimes it's really... That's... That's further than I wanted. Sometimes it's really touchy to get the right... You can undo though, which is cool. So let's actually undo that to where I messed it up. And then... Dagnabbit! See what I mean? So I don't know if I'm just doing it wrong, which is highly possible. But I can never seem to get this right. And I think part of it's the shaders, that there should be a UI element here to tell you kind of where your cursor is. And I don't think I'm always seeing it because of the shaders. I could be wrong. But I'm kind of thinking that I'm not. And then, again, there's the flip point. So we can kind of stack this up. And I don't know if I'm a little too high on that or not. I think that would be okay. And then we can bring this out. Now, grant you, I am off by 1. Oops. Because of the extra layer on top that I put in there. But, so basically we could just do this kind of stuff. And it basically allows for some really detailed, creative type stuff, which is always cool. And of course, you know, access to all kinds of creativity from here. I make a table. So, dang nabbit. See, I can't get this to line up right, and I don't know. There we go. I don't know what I'm missing with how I'm looking at this, but it's not always going right. Boom. There we go. And now let's add a plane. Bam. So yeah, that's... And I'd need to do that over here to now extend it correctly, but you get the idea. So that's one way to... It's almost like carpenter blocks, or... I think that's what it was called. Not carpenter blocks. It's that one that had the saw in it, and you could saw them into little pieces and use like a strip or a cube or something like that, and you could build up more microblocks. That's what it was called. It reminds me of microblocks, but on an entirely different level, because we're doing big chunks, but I can do single bits, which, as you can see, you know, you can do all kinds of crazy stuff with it if you want to. And from what I understand, it's not too crazy performance heavy. I am noticing a frame rate dip there, but I've been experiencing a little bit of that anyway, so I'm not sure if that's the chisel mod at all or not. One easy way to know would be from here. We're at like 40, and let's see, we're about 50. When I turn this way, it's still about 50. So I don't think it's the mod, maybe? Maybe it's the UI? It might be the UI there, actually. Yeah, okay. So it's, it looks like it's basically this little cube thing, the UI element. Because when I select off of it, now I go back to 60 frames. So yeah, probably the same thing can be triggered with this if we were to turn that on. Yep. Now we're at about 50, 48. Turn that back off. We're still at 50, 48. So maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong there. I have little frame rate fluctuations here and there, though I don't know where exactly it's all coming from. But yeah, so that's kind of what I'm thinking. As for some of the YouTube scheduling stuff, I know I mentioned I was going to be doing a podcast thing where I was talking about scheduling updates and things like that, and it never happened. I had some more scheduling stuff come up, and I couldn't record it. So it'll probably be out somewhere about Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of this week. And I'm going to go over in more detail what I'm thinking my new schedule is going to be. I do have a plan, and if all goes well, I should be putting out daily episodes of things moving forward, and probably still trying to focus on wrapping up my book, which should be a month or two out, give or take, depending on if everything goes the way that I hope it will. And as well as some Patreon changes. I'm going to be making some changes to Patreon and trying to actually make use of it a little bit more, and do some more reward tiers and goals and stuff like that. So definitely be on the lookout for the podcast episode where I'm going to go over that with a bit more in depth, but I should be back to a more regular schedule probably the beginning of next week, if all goes well. So with that, we're going to wrap things up here. One of these days, these episodes won't be so long. I don't know when that'll happen. But in the meantime, we're going to wrap things up. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.